Okay, so as promised, this is a second version of the grade calculator with input validation. So the second version of adding input validation to the grade calculator. In the first version, I did input validation by adding a nested while loop inside this while loop that just validated the input, or actually if the input was invalid, it looped around until we got valid input. So this time, I'm just going to use an if statement. I have noticed I've kind of tried to squeeze it all, get it all in the page here. So here's my main while loop. This first section is get input, and the second section is process input. So what I can do is right after I get that input, I have the scanf statement. I'll just delete that blank line to make some room. I'm going to say if, so if it's valid, so valid is if the grade is less than -1. Now remember, oh wait, no, this is valid. So if the grade is greater than or equal -1, it's valid input because -1 is valid input. It's the sentinel value that tells us to stop processing grades. So it's not a valid grade. Valid grades are from 0 to 100, but it is valid input. Okay, so if the grade is greater than or equal to -1, and this time I have to say and, these both have to be true, and the grade is less than or equal to 100, then it's a valid grade. So I'm going to do all this valid grade stuff. And let me put a end thing there. And I'm going to just quickly do this Control A for all and K and F to format it so I'll get my indentations correct. So this happens for a valid grade, and I'm going to use an else statement and do some stuff for an invalid grade. Now, remember I'm in this while loop, so I've prompted the user and got some information, and if it's valid, I've processed it. If it's not valid, I've skipped all this processing, and so all I really need to do is prompt the user telling them they've entered invalid information, and it's going to go back and go through this input stuff here again. So essentially what I'm doing is just doing only processing for valid data. So I don't even have to do a scanf, I just have to do a printf to let the user know what's going on. So I'm going to do a line feed and say grade entered not valid. Please enter a grade from from 0 to 100. And I'm not even going to put the -1 to finish message because that's in the prompt that I'm going to generate. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll go up to the top here and build this. And run. So valid input, more valid input, 999, invalid input. And there's my message. Please, grade entered not valid. Please enter a grade 0 to 100. And then you see it generates my prompt. It goes back into that while loop and generates my prompt. So I'll enter a valid grade and a -1. And there we have 1 passed, 2 failed, 3 students in all. So simple. In some ways easier than the nested while. However, I think when we add the next step, the converting it to yes or no, this may cause an extra difficulty. It's still doable. Anyways, that's the other way that you can, or another way you can do it. I'm sure there's a multitude. And that's it for this movie.